Good evening and welcome to the Franchise Tag Monday Night Football show and review show for the weekend. Had to have a little mess around there, and if you're on Twitter, we maybe are just popping up and you didn't see the intro. I forgot to put Twitter in there. I've now put it on Twitter, so we're all good. Twitter fans are watching us. Don't worry, Adam, it's okay. It's all been sorted by the maestro over here. Again, Skyless, he is out on holiday. So it's going to be us two again this evening. A fantastic weekend of football. I tried to catch as much of it as I could. I was working, but I managed to consume a lot of it yesterday evening and some of the highlights today as well, and plenty to talk about. Obviously, we had the Thursday night game with the Philadelphia Eagles beating the Washington Commanders 26-18, a tough divisional rivalry, but sees that division being headed up by these two teams, and a lot of fun that is. We saw the Detroit Lions absolutely murder the Jacksonville Jaguars, 52-6. I'm shocked that we've not had an announcement yet to say that Doug Peterson is out of there. There has been a Twitter announcement that he's announced that Gabe Davis will miss the rest of the season. So
great.
Surely that's not the news we actually, we don't want to hear that, unfortunately, for Gabe Davis, but we would have thought that maybe Doug, it might be in the next half an hour, you never know. The Miami Dolphins beat the Las Vegas Raiders 34-19. And the first game that we are going to talk about tonight is the Green Bay Packers game, beating the Chicago Bears. Your team, Adam, beating them 20-19. Packers go 7-3 with the Bears now at 4-6. Obviously, your team, I mean, you've lived to tell the tale. You've survived. The heart didn't give out or give way, I suppose. A dramatic ending to the game as well, with a blocked field goal that sent the Packers whapping.
Another long game. Every game with this team this season has been a long game.
It feels like you're not happy, but you won in a way.
Yeah, it was kind of one of them where it's not, I suppose, for the long haul, it's not particularly promising. It kind of felt it was very hard going. The offense, especially Jordan Love, kind of struggled a little bit to get things going. We've got another interception that he's had where it just feels like every game he's going to throw one. That just seems to be, it's very, I think the one thing we can all definitely say now for Packers fans, they should have all realised by now that this is very much Brett Favre rather than Aaron Rodgers. This is, you're going to get the boom, you're going to get the bust a little bit.
I actually put in my notes that Love's interception avoidable, but he's a gunslinger, and you're going to get that. You are just going to get that. You've got to live with that. And sometimes, like you said, it is absolutely sensational, and sometimes you get that.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is, and that's not necessarily a criticism on him. It's just that's how he plays. So you kind of have to accept it, and that's fair enough. More often than not, it works out. So you can't really have a go at him for it. But yeah, it was a long, a bit of a slog. Never really felt like they were in control of the game. I would say it kind of felt like it was very sort of like swinging 50-50 a lot of the time. I have to say, I think the Bears were loads better than what they have been. Clearly, conversations have been had since Shane Waldron's been gone, and that there's been a change. DJ Moore getting much more involved, getting the ball out much quicker, and just generally letting Caleb Williams run a little bit as well. That was the other thing. So I think it was a vastly improved offense, and so there is a lot of promise, I think, for Bears fans. That's what they've got to take out of it, despite the loss. And but yeah, I mean, just felt like a long old slog, but another win. And I suppose at the end of the day, my argument is always, if you're playing badly and winning, you can't be doing too bad. So I think that's how you've got to look at it a little bit. But for the long term, for going into the playoffs and things like that, which the Packers need to be looking at as kind of a regular thing now with Jordan Love, it does make you worry when you see teams like the Eagles and how well they are progressing throughout the season. And then there are other teams as well that just generally, the Lions obviously looking amazing, and there's a couple of teams like maybe not so
The
great, but
Vikings in
the
division. The Vikings
yeah,
in division.
I mean the
Still
Vikings
pretty decent.
look all right. I know the Falcons really struggled last night, but they are a team that previously had looked pretty good, and you would expect them to win their division now. There are some okay teams, and you just sort of feel like they could come up against something where if they have one of these games where it doesn't really hit, then they might struggle.
I mean, when I looked at your box score, the only thing you won in really was penalties. You had 3 to
Oh,
Chicago.
we're good for a
7.
penalty. We've always been good for a penalty.
Well, no, you only got 3 and Chicago got 7. So you actually did well there.
Okay.
You were pretty good. That was the only thing in the box score where you did well. Like everything
Yeah.
else was very comparable to Chicago. It was also the most rushing yards you've had on this defense this year with this season with 179. Best Christian Watson performance though this season, and I have to say that is, I think, what everyone enjoys about the Packers is the dynamic wide receiver room that you have, and I think it's actually what gives teams headaches. Is that you can't really plan for which one's going to come out and dominate. Watson or Dobbs or Reed. Or if they use the tight end more, I'm sure I'm missing play, or if they then concentrate on using Josh Jacobs, which they've not really done in that many games this season where it's been all through him, I suppose. It's not like it was at the Raiders where he was utilized a lot more, I suppose. They're sort of putting a bit of a count on it. But when you've got an arm like Love, you're going to use that, aren't you? And like you said, it is the boom or bust that you're going to have, and it makes for exciting football. It's cool. It is fun football, and I'm sure for as Packers fan, it is a bit of a. If you had hair to tear out, you would maybe tear it out on occasion, But for other Packers fans with more follicles going, I'm sure there's patches because he can be so amazing and yet he can be so frustrating all at the same time. But I think he's progressed. We're forgetting he didn't play properly for a fair few seasons. And this is almost in his progression era, I suppose. He's not. Josh Allen had the same problems, in them years, and Love will get there eventually, and it's going to be a few drafts. And I think you're going to be definitely a playoff team in my eyes.
Yeah.
There is going to have to be progression in certain areas, and sometimes things don't. The defense that you had a couple of years ago that was really, really solid, and you kept building and putting depth in. Had that complementary offense, whereas now it's feeling very evenly like we're progressing on both levels with the defense and the offense, even though I think defense is good and I think this offense is good, but both do have moments of making mistakes, don't they? On the Bears side of it, I mean, I think the knock-on of Waldron going, we saw it with the head coach Saints. We saw it with the Saints. They had their head coach fired and they bounced back with a win, didn't they? Like I think that's what it was always going to happen. I mean, they kept toe-to-toe with you in this game all the way through. And, even when Caleb he's not finding the passing touchdowns just yet. I mean, his wide receivers are good with Allen and Odunze and Moore. And I think, I truly think this offense and this defense has got something. They have both got something. I mean, I've watched a few podcasts in the last few weeks, and the calls for Caleb being a bust have been very ringing true. But I don't see that. I don't see it being a bust. I see it as situational with this team. They've got the building blocks here to get something going. It's just about progression.
Yeah, I think it's been. I understand why there's been that accusation leveled at him, the idea that he is a bit of a bust and stuff like that. But I think it's one of them things where you do have to remember that he's a rookie. I don't care how well he did in college; he is still a rookie in the NFL, and so it is difficult. And we're not going to
a rookie with no O-line.
No, I mean, that is the other thing. Now, a lot of people will come out and go, yeah, but he didn't have an O-line in college. It's like, yeah, but it doesn't matter. It's the NFL. Totally it's a completely different thing. So it's like you need that O-line to be stronger. And they have been pretty poor most of this season. Mm-hmm. The wide receivers are good wide receivers. The problem has been the play calling. And you saw that in this one. You need to keep it simple. Look at what Bo Nix is doing. That when you actually look at what Bo Nix is doing and Sean Payton is doing, there's not actually anything that complicated in it. It's kind of quite basic. You've got a solid run game to help you out, and it's just generally pretty decent, basic offensive play. And when you're getting that right, you can then sprinkle in the other stuff after that, because once he started working that out, and look at how well the Broncos are doing with this Bears team, you have got the offense to do that. You know, they are there. Yes, the O line is a massive problem and it needs sorting out. And, you know, during last year's draft, they had that opportunity to go out and get themselves a really good O-line person, but they went for Roma Dunze at number 9 instead. And maybe they're regretting that a little bit. You know, they could have stayed with DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Cole Kmet could have been used more. Do you really need 3 wide receivers? But maybe at the same time, you look at it and go, this is a learning year. We're not expecting him to do much anyway. Let's then, you know, this year go out and get one of the best O-line guys that we can get, and then that will help you. So I think a lot of the problem has been play calling. That's been the real issue. And you saw that in this game where the ball was coming out loads quicker. DJ Moore was just there a lot of the time. He was getting no targets in a lot of these games before. He got, say, 5, 6 targets. He had 7 receptions for 62. You know, that's what you need to do. And it's like there's clearly a you know, that he's got a rapport with Roma Dunze. That's clear to see. But the thing is, there's no point in just throwing it to Roma Dunze all the time. You've got to move it across to everyone. And I think seeing that, having more people getting involved, having Keenan Allen getting involved, okay, maybe you're not getting loads of touchdowns, but you're just changing things up a bit and keeping it simple, but changing it up on the receivers. And I think that will help them. And then if they can get that run game going as well, great. And he can be a part of that because he's got the legs to do it. So I think there is promise for him.
They've not had a bad run game this year with DeAndre. I mean,
no,
I've
not
got
awful.
fantasy football been pretty decent, to be fair. But like, I think the idea of it was if we give him loads of talent, then he can just sling it up and one of them will get it. And it's like, well, no, it's a bit more idiosyncrasies to it than that. Like, you know, it's a little bit more. You got to give that guy, a fighting chance within this league if he is going to succeed. Let's talk about the rest of the results of the weekend before we go on to our next game. We had the Miami Dolphins hosting the Las Vegas Raiders, which I've already said, as I've just said that. I've already said that score. You know it. It's 34-19. We had the New England Patriots narrowly losing out to the LA Rams 22-28. The New Orleans Saints bashed the Cleveland Browns 35-14. We had my Pittsburgh Steelers, now top of the AFC North, beating the Baltimore Ravens and didn't even have to score a touchdown. And we beat them 18-16. We are going to talk more about that on tomorrow's show. I know it seems like an obvious game for us to talk about tonight, but we're trying not to coincide the shows with the same content. We had the Minnesota Vikings beating the Tennessee Titans 23-13, as well as the Indianapolis Colts just eking over against the New York Jets 28-27 in an exciting game that was. We are going to now talk about the next game on our slate, and that is the Kansas City Chiefs losing to the Buffalo Bills 30-21. I mean, in hindsight, this should have been a late night game, shouldn't it? Really, like let's be honest. I think when they put the fixtures together, I mean, you know, that the Chiefs haven't lost yet. Now they're 9-1, 9-2. Bills are. I mean, this is the first loss of the season for the Chiefs. Thoughts on this game with the Chiefs losing their first one?
Not a surprise. I have to say, I think that I can't remember exactly, but I think quite a lot of us in our pool picked the Buffalo Bills to win.
I've got a feeling I didn't, you know.
Were you the one who went against it?
I may have been the one. I may have been the one out of the 8 of us or whatever it is.
I wasn't surprised that this happened. I think
I did pick the Chiefs as well.
You picked the Chiefs. Okay. I think quite a few of us went for the Bills. I think that if I remember rightly, is it 2 of the last 3 that have been in Buffalo? I think the Bills have won. They tend to. I don't know. It just felt like the Bills were going to.
I've got since 2018 the Bills were 3-4, and now it's
right. Okay.
Against them. So I don't know where home or away. Yeah. That does include playoff games though as well. So.
I don't know why. There was just I think maybe because of how close the Chiefs were to losing against the Broncos, and just generally they haven't been fantastic. I do have this sort. I do really feel that they do just do enough, and more often than not, that gets them the win. It normally does, but it did feel like the Bills were kind of on a bit of a run, have been playing quite well this season, and it kind of just felt like that the Bills were going to take this one. As for the game in general, I just think that the Bills defense just did enough. It's a bit of a funny one. Like I say, I normally go for it like the Chiefs normally do enough offensively, but the Bills just did enough. Really managed to take DeAndre Hopkins out of the game, really took Travis Kelce out of the game. And I think they just went, okay, we're going to take your two main receivers out. What are you going to do? And I think that it does go to show that they are beatable.
They had to turn to Xavier Worthy, and let's face it, he's fast, but he's a rookie all at the same time.
Yeah, and also it's very boom or bust. It's like you're either going to get a massive play or you're going to get nothing, and that tends to be how Worthy is. So I think that it's funny, really, because obviously you're looking at a score of 30-21. It didn't really feel like there was much offense played, to be honest. It felt like it was a very sort of defensive game where it was kind of the run game from the Bills was what kind of got them over the line. You look at Josh Allen as a quarterback, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 262 yards. It's nothing special, really, when you look at it. But the run game with James Cook and Josh Allen as well, obviously, really showed the difference there. And I think the Chiefs, I actually think this is going to be a positive for them. I really do. I think that they will get this unbeaten run off their back, which I think once you start reaching 9 games, and I think people are going, oh, are they going to go the whole the season? And that's just what it is. So I think that takes that away.
What's funny is the next 3 games are Panthers, Raiders, Chargers, and they're going to comfortably win 2 of them. So
I mean, Panthers, Raiders, they should win very easily. I personally think the Chargers are going to be very difficult for anyone on the AFC to beat. I think they are going to be tough. So yeah, I think that's that will be difficult for them. But yeah, they're just the Chiefs are just one of these teams. They only ever do enough. On occasion, you're going to get found out doing that, and they did last night. But I think there's probably still a pretty strong chance that they're going to be the number 1 seed come the end of this season. And yeah, I it's a blip, which most good teams have.
I don't even think it's a blip, really.
No, not
because they were competitive in this game. This is the first, I would say, elite quarterback they've come up against since Lamar and Joe Burrow in week 1 and 2, and it's week 1 and 2. You don't, and also Burrow was without a lot of his players to begin with. There was lots of injuries on that team to start the season. We were all quite surprised that Baltimore didn't sort of run them closer in the first game. I know it was a big game, but that was the first game of the season. But it was the first game of the season, and Lamar's been Lamar now. We didn't know how Lamar would be at that point. We didn't know how Joe would be at that point, I suppose. So this is the first elite quarterback they're coming against, and everyone pounds table of it, and me as well. And it's just reigned so true. Any team can win with Josh Allen in it. Like Josh Allen is that good. And you know what I loved? They were not intimidated. You're coming into our place. We are going to be loud. We are going to be, we're going to intimidate you, and we're going to shut you down, even though you've got one of the top defenses. They knew they couldn't run on this defense, so they're fine. We'll throw on you, but we won't keep throwing it. We won't make ridiculous throws. We won't be silly with our throws. We'll be really methodical with our throws, and we'll break you down bit by bit. And that's what I found really impressive about this team. Allen was 27-40 throws. It's a lot of throws. 262 yards, a touchdown, and interception. Like that's and he's got the players to do it. I know they've not got Kincaid at the minute, but Dawson Knox was decent. Khalil Shakir is having actually a really underrated season. He's in amongst the top wide receivers in yards. He had 8 receptions, 70 yards on this game. He's been really good. I mean, how good everyone knew it was going to be good, but how good is Imari Cooper trade? Like, how clever was that? Like, I mean, I know some people go like, yeah, but you had Diggs in the building. Different guys, different needs, clearly. So yeah, I mean, I'm just really impressed by them. And like Mahomes said at the end of the game, like this probably isn't the last time we see them this year. You know, we're probably going to see them in the playoffs at some given point potentially. And I think you're right. You know, the thing was with it got to 14-16 at half time. You know, the Chiefs down. You think, oh, this feels like what the Chiefs do all the time and just come back and win. But it was really great that the Bills sort of stepped up and really solidified that they are in the conversation to go to the Super Bowl. And yeah, it's one of them. It's one of them where, you know, Mahomes is not playing to a standard. We all know this. So teams are going to look to take advantage of that. But then they know the defense is really good. And then it's maybe a little bit now this season. It's not how do we stop Mahomes, it's how do we break down this defense. And I don't think that's ever been the case with the Kansas City Chiefs until this year.
Yeah, I think you're not far from it. I do think things will change when Pacheco's back. I have to say, I think that's definitely as good as Kareem Hunt has been. I think there is a limit to what you're getting from him, and I just think that Pacheco is a different beast when he's fit, and it looks like that he will be back. If he's not back next week, he'll be back the week after. So I think that will help them out quite a lot. I think they've got very good chance of being the number one seed on the AFC side, given where they are at the moment. If they get that, then everything goes through Arrowhead, which is going to be difficult to beat them in. So that's another one. And yeah, I think it's just going to be. I think they're in a position where they're not doing as well as what they have done previously, but at the same time, more often than not, they're going to get over the line because that's just what they do. And it's kind of nice in a way to see the Bills doing as well as they are, because I think that at the beginning of the season, there was a lot of hype around the Jets, a lot of hype around the Dolphins, and it hasn't really happened for either team. Although I think the Dolphins will improve over the next few weeks. But yeah, it hasn't really happened for either of them two teams. And it just kind of feels a little bit like, no, the Bills are still the grown-ups in the room kind of thing. Like they are the ones to beat in that division, and you're not gonna be able to steamroll past them. And like you say, if you've got Josh Allen, then you've always got a chance. So I think, yeah, there's a strong chance that both of them will be seeing each other again.
Well, let's have a final look at the results for the rest of the weekend. And the Denver Broncos were very impressive win over the Atlanta Falcons, beating them 38-6. We also had the Seattle Seahawks beating the 49ers 20-17. Now both 5-5 in their division. I mean, the division starts to become really tasty, that one does. And then our final game for this evening that we're going to be talking about is the Cincinnati Bengals losing to the Los Angeles Chargers 34-27. Bengals now 4-7 on the season. Chargers 7-3. I mean, first of all, the Chargers were 24-6 at the half. So I think a little bit of Harbaugh is going to be, you know, pretty miffed that this game ran this close. Because I think, you know, when you're leading like that into the half, I think a coach like him sees it as, no, well, we need to put, you know, our foot on the throat here and really, you know, stop these guys to the mud and get out of here with our win, move on to the next game. But the Bengals, you know, fought back in it and really gave it a good go to try and get back in it, but just fell short to a J.K. Dobbins rushing touchdown, which, you know, they were in field goal range. They could, you know, from what we've seen this weekend, maybe they would have missed it or maybe it would have been blocked. But you'd like to think that they probably would have got that. So what did you make of this game?
I thought it was one of the better games, actually. It was one of them where, like you say, in a way, probably the Chiefs-Bills should have been the Sunday night game, and it would have been nicer if it was, because then we would have been able to watch this one earlier, kind of thing. I thought it was quite an exciting game. They're very polar opposites as teams. You know, Chargers very sort of like run heavy, defensive minded. Bengals very much about Burrow chase, and fortunately in this game T Higgins was fit, so him as well. But two quite exciting teams to watch at the moment. I think Harbaugh has completely changed everything to do with the Chargers. They're definitely a team that are much more exciting to watch than what I think we've thought they would be. And it's really sort of like opened it up for Justin Herbert. And I think that he looked really good last night. He only threw for 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 297 yards. But the point is that he only had 36 attempts. It's like it wasn't an insane amount. It is kind of coming down a bit, and it's quite 50-50 compared to what it was before. And because of that, it's really helping Herbert out because he hasn't got it all on his shoulders, which is what he had the last couple of years. And so you're seeing, okay, yeah, that final play, it was a J.K. Dobbins run, but there were 2 really, really good passes to get
really
them
good passes
into that position in order to be able to do that and win the game. And so something that's been leveled at Herbert is that he can't finish off games. Okay, he didn't throw the final touchdown, but he got them to where they needed to. And now the run game is there to help. It kind of almost means that it's not so much on him. And so that was huge. And I think that's been huge for him all of this season. And I really think that the sky's the limit for the Chargers. I really do. Because that defense, it didn't do amazing in the second half. It kind of disappeared a little bit. But the one thing I would say is when you're going up against Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins, it's quite easy for any defense to disappear, even the good ones. So I think that was probably more what it was. It was that the Bengals offense just exploded in that second half and really did very well. Chase Brown as well as their running back really, really did well as well. And I think that if you're a Bengals fan, you just must be so frustrated at this defense who are just giving up points so easily. And it's like I say, that final drive, there was no coverage at all. It was like the receivers were wide open. Dobbins with a rushing touchdown, but like 30 yards out. And just sort of like, yeah, absolutely crazy that you would give that much space to these guys. And I'm not surprised that that's how it ended. Unfortunately for the Bengals, I think they're going to miss out because the defense just isn't doing enough. They've got to invest in that defense. And the Chargers have just got another win, and they're going to be tough to beat anyone. They really are. And I think there's going to be some. It wouldn't surprise me if they're a wild card team and they make an upset on one of the big teams. It really wouldn't. But yeah.
I put at the start of my notes, this game is a story of how the Bengals defense is really, really bad.
Yeah.
Really bad. But what a pleasure it was to see like 2 young, really good quarterbacks just like going at it. Where, like, this is a battle for, not a battle, maybe, not a divisional battle, but a game that we'll see probably in the future, for the next 10 years with both of these guys. Like, how cool will that be? Like, how fun will that be? I think for the Chargers, I mean, I've got a couple of bits and bobs here. I mean, they've only had one game where they went 100 yards rushing and won. So I still think rushing is their thing. I mean, and that was against the Browns. So, it was the Browns. Like, let's not worry about that one sort of thing. Like, they are going to do that, but then they know they can unleash Herbert. They can just unleash Herbert. And Lab McConkey's really coming on. Quentin Johnston, I mean, has gone from bust to superstar in this offense. Like, and you wouldn't have thought that Harbaugh, John Harbaugh would be turning a wide receiver into that sort of guy. He makes running back. That was what he's known for is his running game and his solid defenses, obviously. They've had 3 losses to. I mean, they've had 3. They've lost to the Steelers, Chiefs, and Cardinals. I'm not saying Fields is an elite quarterback, but that is a team that has got a fantastic defense. You played against an elite quarterback in Pat Mahomes. You played against a quarterback that people are saying is in the MVP race in the Arizona Cardinals. They've not played particularly great teams throughout this season. And this was like a benchmark, I think. And I'm not saying Bengals are a great team either, but you've got, again, it's like the Josh Allen thing I said. Any team with Joe Burrow can win. Any team with Josh Allen can win. Like, Joe Burrow is being held back at the minute by how poor his defense is, and he is having to be, and also how poor his running game is as well. And he's having to be this throwing machine, which he is, and he's really, really good at that. And the defense is number one in points against them, so they know how to hold teams. Their stats aren't great on everything else, but they're a decent defense, and they're going places. And it's just then on the flip side of the Bengals, like they're just having they're wearing Joe Burrow out. He's having to be exceptional for them to win. And they can only be exceptional one way, and that's throwing the ball, because their run game is really bad. Even though I think Chase Brown is definitely a great prospect. I think Chase Brown is a very good prospect, and he's clearly going to be their number one running back now. And that's fine. That's going to be really good. But, it's a little bit late in the day for you to be having your running back be exceptional now. We're 11 weeks in. You can't, if you want to go to the playoffs, you can't be having that 11 weeks in. Okay, you may lose players to injury and stuff like that, but then your players need to step up. When you look at the 49ers, 5-5, been without CMC most of the season. Yes, Jeff Mason was decent, but would they be in the same position if CMC was in there the whole season? Don't think so. I think they'd be top of the division. Maybe, it's a knock-on effect, isn't it? And I'm not going to bore everyone again, because I feel like we've sort of killed the stats to obliteration now of how much we've said them on this podcast and on the Tuesday show. They are a bottom ranking defense. They're really poor. And is it we discussed it a week back, was it the fact that Jesse Bates left? I don't know.
Yeah, but
it's just not great. And we know what you're coming up against the Chargers. They like to run the ball, but that Herbert's got their arm. You could argue, I've just said that Johnston and McConkey are doing well. Yes, they're doing well, but they are nowhere elite. These guys can be stopped. You can outplay these guys, and the Bengals just don't have players to do it. They've also now got a really bad injury to their cornerback, I think, who's now out for the season. I just saw reported a moment ago, which again is that's going to hinder it even more. The name I'm completely forgetting now, though.
Cornerback?
DJ Turner.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
He's fractured his clavicle, is going to be out for the season.
All right.
It's not what you need, is it? Like,
No.
It's just bad. But and then you have to rely on Joe Burrow. And now next 3 games for the Bengals: Steelers, Cowboys, Titans. I think they lose to us. I do. Even against Burrow. I know Burrow's really good. I think we beat them still the way we're going at the minute. They go against Cowboys. I think they beat the Cowboys. And then again, the Titans play pretty well over the weekend. The Titans could be a tough game for them. I think this has been a bit of a humbling season for the Bengals, of where they were to where they are now, and a big learning curve. And, Zach Taylor without Joe Burrow only had 2 wins, Got Joe Burrow, goes to Super Bowl, goes to playoffs, and suddenly when you're hindering Joe Burrow a lot, it's not looking great. Could you argue their 4 wins have been because of Joe Burrow? I don't know. I don't know the box scores for each of them games, but there's got to be that conversation surely now by its point.
Yeah, it is difficult with what's going on there. And when I was just having a quick look at the the depth chart for him, and when you look at some of the Cam Taylor-Britt has not had a great season. He has struggled a bit. But when you look at them, you've got Von Bell, you've got Geno Stone. Obviously, like you say, DJ Turner's just gone out injured. I don't know. It just kind of feels like a lot of guys that are not at the top of their game when it comes to the secondary there. Trey Hendrickson has still been decent, but he's a guy who's going to want to get paid, and he's getting older as well. That's the other thing. So it's tough there. Sheldon Rankin.
I honestly thought that the Lions should have traded for him.
Yeah, I think I was looking into it, and when you look at his age and his contract, I think he's a free agent at the end of this season. So given his age of, I think he's 31 or 32, he's going to want to get paid a last payday somewhere, and it kind of feels like they're not really doing it. Sam Hubbard has not been as great as what he's been in the last couple of years. It just feels like this defense has not only lost some of its star names like Jesse Bates, it's also just generally got a little bit weaker as well, and a bit older, and that kind of seems to be the problem. Yes, a lot of it obviously is on Joe Burrow and that offense, so losing T. Higgins as much as they have is very difficult as well. I think you have to maybe question Zach Taylor a little bit here, but I don't think it's completely on him. I think some of this is to do with the organisation in general, the GM, and just the fact that they're a pretty in the NFL, they're
they've not drafted well.
No, they haven't.
And they've not drafted well on defense either, and they have focused on it.
No,
and they've not drafted well.
And I think Zach Taylor will probably end up paying for it come the end of the season, because I think the idea of having Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase as your main guys in your offense, and you're not getting into the playoffs, I think is probably the end for the head coach.
Yeah, you sort of look at that and go, well, if you can't do it with them two, who can you do it with?
Yeah,
in that sort of sense. Right, finally, for our show, as per what we do, it's the Monday Night Football review, which is Houston Texans traveling somewhat closely, I suppose, as the crow flies. It's still far away. They're traveling to the Dallas Cowboys, the Texas rivalry being ignited. A team that is very much desperately looking for a win, a team that is desperately looking for a pretty good draft pick, it feels like at the minute. A team in disarray to a team that is getting a little bit more healthier. Obviously, Nico Collins is back now, isn't he? He's going to be starting this game.
Yeah.
What are you making of this game with that in bear in mind, and also with obviously Cooper Rush leading the line for the Dallas Cowboys?
Yeah, I think that this is just a,
It's a terrible game on paper.
I'm a little surprised it wasn't flexed out, to be honest. But it wasn't flexed out because it's the Cowboys. It's basically what it is. So they know that people will watch. It's a big game for the Texans. Obviously, the Colts winning last night, so Texans are 6-4, Colts are 5-6. So if the Texans were to lose this, then there would only be one game between them. So the Texans want to keep their foot on the pedal here and win this one. Cowboys, where'd you start with the Cowboys sort of thing? Just a complete mess. Obviously, Dak being out, and it is Cooper Rush, and like you said, that's going to be there.
CeeDee Lamb has been questionable, but per Twitter,
I think he's going to play, isn't he?
He's playing.
Yeah. So he's going to play, because if he didn't, then that really would be a disaster. I think that's basically all they have. I think it pretty much is now down to Lamb and Rico Dowdle, I think, as the starting running back there. I think that's what you're dealing with now, and they're just not going to put the points up. So, and the defense has been awful as well. It really has been poor this season. Dan Quinn going has had a massive effect on that defense, and they're
looking over the fence in their division and seeing how well it's doing.
Yeah, exactly. Washington, and it's that. I think that's it. That's it for them. If Dak isn't coming back now, and I just don't see where they suddenly get enough points to win any games that they've got. I don't know what their schedule is, but unless they're playing some really poor teams, I just don't see where they're going with it. So I don't think it'd be a particularly exciting game. I think the Texans could probably come out and get a pretty decent lead reasonably quickly on this game, because I just don't think the Cowboys score them. And I think they win it pretty comfortably.
I'll just try and find their schedule for you. I mean, I know the Eagles' defense is good, but they had 49 passing yards and total 146 offensive yards, which is the lowest of the season. And their defense has allowed over 300 total offensive yards 6 times and only won once in doing that. On a 4-game losing streak. And the Texans are sort of getting healthy. I know they were without Diggs, but they got Nico Collins back. I don't think people realize how much Nico Collins plays such a big factor into this offense, because I know they've not been great in the last few weeks, but they have been without him in the last 5 games. I mean, they've only gone over 200 passing yards once since they lost him, which was against the Colts, and they've actually but they did win that game. And they're actually 2-3 without him. So and also their defense is, I think, a little bit underestimated in this league as well. I mean, they're not, box score wise and in the rankings wise, they are not like top flight, but they know how to put pressure on a quarterback. They're pretty good at that. They're not elite, but they are good at that, and you expect that with the guys that they have in that front 7. So the Texans are walking away. I don't think the Texans will put up like loads and loads of points. I think this could be like a 26-10, to be honest with you. I think there'll be a few moments where Stroud, it might not just go back. I think that they're still trying to find their feet, the Texans, a little bit at times. Stroud is not playing to the the way that he was playing last season. Don't think it's necessarily his fault. Obviously, injuries have sort of cost him with Collins and Diggs. Joe Mixon is just running riot as well, which also means that within the box score wise and the stats wise, in gameplay wise, you don't see Stroud doing as much, which they obviously did last year because their running game wasn't as good. So I think the Texans walk out of here with a really easy win in Dallas. But the Cowboys fixtures now. So they play the Texans tonight. They're then at the Commanders, host the Giants, host the Bengals, at the Panthers, host the Buccaneers, at the Eagles, host the Commanders to end the season. So what they're losing? I mean, I think they beat the Giants just on talent alone with CD just because of roster. I think they lose to the Bengals. I think they lose to the Panthers, to be honest with you. I think they lose to the Buccaneers. I think they lose to the Eagles. I think they lose to the Commanders twice. Yeah, I think I see one win here.
I think the Giants, given the fact that they've now come out and said that Tommy DeVito is going to be the starter, that's going to be a barnstormer. Keep a rush against Tommy DeVito. I think that.
Gosh,
I think that's that. But then I would argue that the Giants' defense is better. So I mean, they might be able to do something.
I suppose, yeah.
There and
like crazy bad when he played.
No.
Yeah, the other week.
So they could do something there. But yeah, that's probably the game where there might be something. The Panthers are not great, but they're looking like that they're getting a little bit of confidence when they play.
I think the Panthers know what they are at the minute, though.
Yeah.
I think they know where they're going, which is better than the Cowboys, I think.
Yeah.
Because the Giants know where they're going. The Giants know they're going for the number 1 draft pick. Like,
yeah.
You could argue they know where they're going. I don't know necessarily Dallas knows. Dallas don't exactly know where they are going. In a draft class that is not stout by no means with talent.
But well,
it's got some talent. I'm not saying it's bad, but no one's really calling this draft class prolific. Like where
I think there's going to be some very good players, but I don't think you're going to see the depth that you have seen in the last couple of years. I think that's where it's a little bit different, especially offensively. I think on the offensive side, there's some great running backs, and that there is depth there. Wide receivers, there's a couple of really good ones, but then it does drop off once you get past 5 or 6 sort of thing. So yeah, it is a bit difficult. I mean, they're currently 9th, Dallas, in the draft order. So like you say, they've got to play Carolina, who are in front of them. They've got to play the Giants, who are in front of them. Yeah, if they start losing these sort of games, then they could have a pretty high pick. And however, on the plus side, at least the sun won't affect them tonight. So that's something, isn't it? So
are the curtains up? Are they?
Well, it's the evening, so
that might be one of the most dumbest things I've ever said.
Yeah. I think it being the evening might help. So.
The problem is I'm trying to sort of multitask doing something.
There's old Jerry with the old what's the name, the curtains. He won't have to do that.
Yeah, like a stage manager. Exit stage left. CD Lamb.
So that's one benefit. At least they won't have to suffer that. But yeah, they're a wreck. They really are a wreck. And I think the Texans are just going to run the ball a lot. No, I have to say I'm not overly.
It's quite lovely.
I'm really not that upset.
I'm really quite enjoying it.
I've never quite understood. So I know this is kind of going off topic a little bit, but obviously Sky, who is normally here, when not being his New England Patriot fan, decides to sort of like become a Dallas Cowboys one. I've never quite understood a neutral that would be on the side of the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, I suppose he's a United fan though as well. Like he's a London United. Like he has them traits, doesn't he?
It does make sense. But I just find it strange that anyone would root for the Cowboys who wasn't a Cowboys fan.
But they are America's team. Apparently, the whole America loves Dallas.
Apparently, that's what they tell me. I mean,
that's what my pavement is.
It's been a while, but that's what they tell me.
They are steeped in history, I suppose. Score prediction.
I think you're probably not far off. I'll go 27 10, 27-7, something like that. I just don't see the. Oh, mind you, they've got a kicker who can kick the ball quite far, haven't they? 27-9, 3 field goals.
I was actually going to I started doing the maths and was like, wait to 10, that would be they got a touchdown. Don't think that'll happen. So I'm going to go 26-9.
Yeah. I think that's probably about right. Three field goals. Yeah.
3 field goals sounds about correct.
Yeah.
Adam, thank you for joining me. Thank you guys for watching, listening, and liking and subscribing to our YouTube and everything that we do on our social media channels. Sky will be back with us soon enough. I am sure we are missing his little face, bless him. Make sure you check out the Tuesday show tomorrow, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Or might it be a little bit of a change upon that show? You never know. Maybe you have to just check it out and make sure you watch and find out. We've also got plenty of other stuff coming for you the rest of the week. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll see you again very soon.